to Caged Minds Uncensored. I'm your host, Micah Frankel. A shout out to Mac10. That's MMA CK10. Check them out on Facebook. Original designs and gear, supporting combat sports and combat sports athletes everywhere. A shout out to Edwin Ruiz and all that he's doing. Always a shout out to them. This week we got a couple events to talk about that happened this weekend. As always, a couple events upcoming, and we're going to get in depth with Eric Suan, Force of One Martial Arts from Clovis, New Mexico. The team has been tearing it up, putting that little city on the MMA scene here locally in New Mexico. So we're going to get to know Eric a little bit better and tell you guys all about him. But this week, we'll start off with LFA 24 results at cagedminds.com. I mean, the event was crazy. Keone Diggs and Nick Chastain, MMA undefeated vet, taking on a Muay Thai prodigy. Chastain showing off a submission game. It was good, but not good enough as he gets caught in a knee bar in the third round in a transition from Keone Diggs. An immediate tap. Diggs is still undefeated, the MMA lab prospect. Glenn Baker, 9 seconds, vicious left hook, knockout victory. Corey Sandhagen with a impressive, just strategic striking performance, vicious body work, and then the right hand. Will Trujillo is on the ground. Corey Sandhagen looking great, bouncing back from the one loss he had in his career. LaRue Burley pushes the pace enough to get a unanimous decision. Mackenzie Dern gets a knockdown, showing a little bit more of that striking. Are we really scared of her striking? No. Is her wrestling really great? No. But boy, is that jiu-jitsu on par. She gets a knockdown, gets the rear naked choke. Vinicia Zani pushes forward, throws hard. A little Brazilian Muay Thai machine, gets a unanimous decision win. And then Curtis Melender, the head kick heard round from Arizona to Australia, taking out Matthew Franco, distracting with the hands, throwing the leg up, wrapping it around the head. 38 seconds of the first round. Curtis Melender making a statement in Arizona. No coincidence that he should be next to challenge for the LFA welterweight title, should challenge Arizona lab prospect James Nakashima, having taken out Arizona Combat Sports prospect product Matthew Franco, the Aussie. Fun night of fights, a ton of finishes. LFA 24 Melender, wow, I mean, 4-fight win streak, a guy that I believe 12-3. It's just he wasn't finding the finishes, and he does it in a big way. Needed to sit down on something, and he sat down on that head kick. Impressive all the way around. Mackenzie Dern, 125. Does she look big enough, strong enough for 125? I'm not sure, but she's obviously a 120er, 125er. She had too many issues, problems making 115 pounds. She is not a straw weight. Impressive in the first fight, taking on a Mandy Polk who did have much more MMA experience and just, to be quite honest, look more solid, look more physically fit. But Mackenzie Dern showing that improvement in the striking, a jab, then the right hand that scored the knockdown. A killer instinct with that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This weekend, also on the national scene, well, global scene, Glory 46 took place. Mainland China, a big event. Exciting stuff. We'll really just touch on what everybody will know, or at least the names they'll recognize. The Super Fight Series on UFC Fight Pass was headlined by a 3-round non-title fight. World Heavyweight Champion, Glory World Heavyweight Champion, Rico Verhoeven, nicknamed the King of Kickboxing, taking on Strikeforce UFC MMA vet Antonio Bigfoot Silva, a guy that had already been getting knocked out in MMA. 5 straight losses, I believe, after you leaving the UFC, going to Russia for a couple. Whoever the agent and manager for Bigfoot Silva is, they have not done this guy any favors. I understand you want to make money so you get the big matchups, but somehow you must not be making enough money if he's so desperate to continually be taking these very dangerous fights. And another one, Rico Verhoeven with leg kicks immediately starts taking out the base of Silva. Early into the second round, Silva is caught off guard by a head kick. The kicks have been going low against the ropes. The right head kick lands, and Bigfoot is seated on his butt. Didn't really seem to be aware. He's getting the standing 8 count or the 10 count. His hands are down. They have him starting to fight again. He gets put into a corner. Thankfully, the crane kick, the spinning heel kick, is missed twice by Verhoeven, but he's cornering off Bigfoot and throwing a plethora of strikes, overhands, uppercuts. The ref jumps in and stops the fight at 47 seconds of the second round. Silva said he would like to rematch Verhoeven, but in the MMA realm, I think that Silva, at this point in his career, should be teaching, should be at the American Top Team Academy or the Team Nogueira Academy, wherever he's working out of right now, and being a trainer, being a corner, working and maybe competing in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu area, that he is a black belt, but hand-to-hand, punch-to-head combat sports, they're not doing any favors to Bigfoot Silva right now. Promoters of kickboxing and MMA are not doing any favors. I know he's a name, he's a relative entity, a star, because he's a UFC vet, but it's the ugly side of the sport. They're taking advantage of it. They're almost picking the bones dry like some crows. And obviously this is the side that you see of combat sports, that are these guys getting paid enough money? Because obviously Bigfoot Silva is past his prime. He's in a state, in a point in his career where he is just getting devastated, and it's sad to see. And it's sad to see these promoters and these people around the industry allowing it to happen. Even the people in his team, there's a point where you got to say enough is enough. It's time to retire. You probably shouldn't be competing. 5 straight knockout losses. You wonder about the long-term health of the family man of Bigfoot Silva. Move on from that. This weekend, that was early in the day, as it was from China. That was early Saturday. Then Saturday night, I went down to the Buffalo Thunder Resort and Casino for Jackson's MMA Series XXIII. And the night started off with a hard-fought split decision. Randy Baker, Brendan Trujillo. Baker pulling out a 2-1 edge in the takedowns in the third round to steal the split decision. Jose Rodriguez, Quentin Carmichael. Carmichael throw a couple kicks, would get taken down in the first, would fight off the submissions. In the second, was unable to and would be rear naked choked. Rodriguez now 2-0. Edwin Cooper would show his wrestling dominance, defeating James Pleasant 30-27 across the board. Andre Mitchell in a scramble catches Brian Linares, gets the back. Linares looked like he was going to spin into the guard, but Mitchell sinks in the rear naked choke for the first round finish 54 seconds in. In what was definitely the amateur fight of the night, Chris Cortez defeats Ambrose Vigil by unanimous decision. Vigil was good with his jab, good with his kick at range, but there was powerful times where the big overhands of Cortez would do damage. The takedowns were on his side. A hard-fought, fun battle. Matt Adcock defeats Jesse Sanders, unanimous decision. Adcock out-wrestled Joel Whitney, Stephen Ojeda. Whitney is able to 3 times take down and get the back of Ojeda, had him flattened out, but the first 2 times the action is stopped. The first time because Whitney lands an illegal blow to the back of the head, an elbow that was obviously illegal. The second time the elbow lands, it looked like Whitney had lined it up, had measured it to hit the ear. Not sure what was going on there. Didn't get a good replay from the live little event feed, as they did have a cameraman outside the cage. The third time, Whitney is able to get the rear naked choke, 4:40 of the first round. The fight got a little dirty, but Whitney, in attack mode, showed good wrestling. His striking looked nice with his hands. Couple hard inside leg kicks. His back mount looked good. Just a little craziness happens inside of the fight. Big win for Joel Whitney. Roy Cicito and Ernesto Savidre put on possibly the best main event I've ever seen inside the Jackson's MMA Series cage. Early on, Cicito working the inside leg kicks. Savidre, I get leg kicked, I'm going to throw back a punch. Not checking the kicks. I always am not in favor of not checking the kicks. Check the kicks. Save the legs. The power for your punching comes from your legs. Don't let your legs get damaged. But Cicito attacked the legs. You had those counter hooks coming back from Savidre. Savidre pushing the pace, getting Cicito's back to the fence, hitting a couple takedowns. But Cicito able to get up. And in the in-between moments when they break apart, it looked like Savidre would get laxed. Cicito would continue to fight, spinning back fist, plethoras of punches. One spinning back fist that barely landed. The second drops Savidre. Thought we were going to have an early knockout, but fighting back, fighting hard is Savidre. Doesn't get finished, still working his wrestling. But for sure, that first round with the knockdown, you got to go for Cicito. In the second round, you had more back and forth wrestling a couple times where Savidre had the back. You thought the rear naked choke would be coming, but Cicito able to explode all the way to the point where we would end the third round with Cicito hunting the rear naked choke. Also, Cicito just punching at all areas, even when his back would get taken. It did a couple times. You would see the punches coming backwards, hitting Savidre. Non-stop action. Cicito early in the third thought he had a vulnerable Savidre. Came in with a flying knee, barely missed. Talking to him, he said he felt hair hit his knee, but did not land the knee to the head. Got taken down. I thought at some point his gas tank was gonna quit, and the wrestler, Savidre, would be able to count on these positions that he's been in before and ride them out. But not for long, as Cicito would explode, would fight back, would take the top position, would be punching at every moment, and would be on top when the fight ended, taking the unanimous decision win. Someone's O had to go as both guys were 1-0. A spectacular fight inside of the Jackson's MMA Series cage, Buffalo Thunder Resort and Casino. You can go check the Buffalo Thunder Resort and Casino videos page of their Facebook page, and you can still enjoy this fight. It was an instant classic, I believe, inside of that Jackson's MMA Series cage. Fighter of the night obviously had to be Roy Cicito from the pro card. You want to say there's an amateur fighter of the night? It's hard to almost decide because Chris Cortez was so exciting. Is on such a win streak, but Matt Adcock and Edwin Cooper were both so dominant with their wrestling. Fight of the night, obviously, Savidre, the main event. On the amateur side, it was Cortez versus V Hill. And then the finish of the night. The finish of the night, as we did have three of them. Joel Whitney's rear naked choke, the rear naked choke of Andre Mitchell, and Jose Rodriguez's. And I got to go with Andre Mitchell's, as it happened inside of such a crazy scramble and such a, instant killer instinct moment. Submission of the night, finish of the night, goes to Andre Mitchell, who claimed his first victory. Full results with the recap gets a little more in detail from that night up at cagedminds.com. And hopefully this week on the website we will get up our post-fight interview with Roy Cicito, having some technical difficulties, but we do have that from backstage right after the event. And I think injuries had depleted this weekend's first card that we're going to talk about. Upcoming this weekend, you have Bellator 185 in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun Arena. Again, a plethora of injuries on that card, but you're still going to see Heather Hardy, the boxing world champion, crossover. Can't wait to see her next performance. And you have the main event, really highly intriguing one. Gegard Mousasi, Alexander Somenko, Netherlands versus Russia. Two technical, two focused individuals. Two guys that are just very well-rounded. The jab and the calculating abilities of Mousasi versus the spinning back fists, the body shots, the spinning kicks of Shlemenko. Underrated in his wrestling and grappling game, but does have that ability. The bigger guy is Mousasi, who does have, I think, the better, actually, wrestling and grappling credentials for both guys being unheralded. This is a top-notch main event, probably not being promoted as much as it should be. A shame that the event has lost what was going to be Liam McGarry versus King Mo, and also we thought we were going to get to see Dave Rickles versus Brennan Ward. The card could have a lot more luster, a lot more hype about it, but a top-notch main event. Not to mention 6-0 Neiman Gracie taking on Zach Bucco, who is 18-8, so a bona fide challenge. Not the card you were expecting. Not a total top tier, but still what I expect to be a very exciting card on Friday night in Connecticut and on Spike TV from Bellator 185. Talked about LFA 24 earlier. Well, LFA is right back in action. Omaha, Nebraska with LFA 25. Dakota Cochran versus Caro Rodriguez. Rodriguez, devastating power. I mean, devastating power. Cochran, the number 1 ranked welterweight in Nebraska. A top-notch wrestler, a veteran of the MMA scene, a top-notch test. You also have Jordan Larson versus Cassius Hollendorf. Cassius, a raw striker. Larson, let's see how good he is. For Mexico's Fernando Padilla, a well-versed finisher, 6 of his 8 wins coming by submission, coming off of a 35-second knockout in King of the Cage over Ryan Filigree, taking on Derek Maynor. Maynor has won 2 straight under the VFC, Victory FC banner, submitting Justin Overton and Will Shunt. So, something always spectacular. The best prospects in whatever area they are in is showcased when you have LFA in town. That's on Access TV on Friday night. And then Saturday, your UFC mid-afternoon treat. And what a phenomenal main event in the welterweight division. Donald Cowboy Cerrone against undefeated 15-0 English Brazilian, grew up in England, now training out of Brazil, Darren Till. Till, a Muay Thai striker. He can be tough, he can be devastating. Cerrone has problems with pressure boxers. We'll have to see how this one works out. Till has the tenacity to be a pressure fighter, but also the youth and inexperience to sometimes let off of the gas, leave holes, give openings. Donald Cerrone, after the first round, comes forward more. After the first round, Till comes forward less. Till would have to be really looking to jump on the gas, I believe, on this one early, not let the moment overwhelm him. The longer this fight goes, I think the more Till's gas tank does wane and Cerrone's does strengthen. It's going to be interesting to see if Cerrone does press and look for his takedowns. The co-main event, Jody Escobel, known her for a long time, been covering out here on the New Mexico scene. Long-awaited UFC debut, and it is a big one, coming against the number 3 ranked strawweight challenger, Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Kowalkiewicz, we know about her boxing, a pressure fighter. Escobel has to use her athletic advantages, which are presumably going to be the speed to get in and out, the athletic burst to be able to mix up timing, get inside, land her strikes, and be able to pressure the longer fighter. Whichever one surprises with the takedown could also determine who will still rounds. Jan Blachowicz is going to take on Devin Clark. Jan Blachowicz, hard-hitting, showed off nice grappling skills, but the UFC has seen holes in his wrestling, and he's being tested again against Clark. Clark has been susceptible at 85. I think it was a weight-cutting issue to power strikes. I don't think that Blachowicz has the same level of wrestling as Clark, but Clark does not have the same level of striking as Blachowicz. Who can get their game off first is going to be victorious. Marcin Held has his back against the wall. He has to make something happen. He has to be able to have a good performance, or else the Polish fighter has had a disappointing run in the UFC. A main event on one card, but a loss later. Artem Lobov, Andre Fili is on the prelims, and that is a featherweight clash that could steal. Sam Alvey on short notice, also on the prelims, and dropping down to 145 pounds. alpha male representative. Josh Emmett's going to meet Felipe Arantes. Depending on how that weight cut goes, Emmett is a non-stop goer. Arantes, that is a fun one. And making her UFC debut on this card, Aspen Ladd, undefeated 5-0, taking on Lena Lansbury. Ladd has shown gross in her striking, primarily likes to take it to the ground. Ladd is going to have to be able to get on the inside, get her trips. I think that Lansbury is going to want to keep this one standing and try to use her striking. I look at this as a very fun card, a international card. You always hear about people that are unheralded. And I almost forgot to say, as I'm talking about unheralded, Poland's Damian Stasiak and New Yorker Brian Kelleher. That is a fight of two guys with multiple skill sets, fast-moving dudes at 135 pounds. Keller so close to victory and takes a defeat in his last one. Same deal with Stasiak. I think this is a really fun card to wake up to early in the morning and tune in to UFC Fight Pass for. And how early in the morning? I think it's going something like 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 in the East. So if you're here in the Mountain Time Zone like me, it's about a 9:30 start time Saturday morning, where you can catch the main card at, what are we talking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A little later in the afternoon. I think you get about a 1 o'clock here local, main card start time, UFC Fight Night in Poland. I look at this card and I find excitement all over the place. I love the European cards, the Japanese cards, where you get these athletes that you're not so accustomed to, and you still get to see these intense fights, especially with guys trying to be breakout, to break through. You get into the UFC, how do you get that next mainstream media push? This week's guest joining us from Clovis, New Mexico, Eric Suan, the head man behind the little secret that a lot of us hardcores know about, Force of One Martial Arts, and the great performances they've been putting on, the great team they're putting together there. Eric, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you, Micah. Great to be here.
So, let's first off get to know you, Eric Suan. Where are you from originally? Are you Clovis native?
No, sir. I grew up pretty much all over the place. My dad was in the military. I was a military brat. Grew up mostly in California and Hawaii, and just traveled around and did a bunch of martial arts while I was a military brat and traveling around.
Where did that martial arts journey start?
My dad was, like I said, in the military, in the Air Force, and those guys need something to do after work, and a lot of those guys would travel overseas and bring that back with them, and my dad just happened to hook up with Seafood Manuel Vega, and he was stopped by Grandmaster Ralph Castro, and that's what they would do after work, and I'd run around the gym as a little kid, and just was in my blood very early. And then as I grew up, back in the 70s, I'm a pretty old guy. I'm 49 years old. Back in the 70s, I actually, was permitted to come into class. Back in those days, they didn't even have kids in class, but my instructor had a couple kids and thought I'd be a good sparring partner for them. So they permitted me to come in and train with them. And everybody else was an adult, and that was my first instructor. Real instructor was Robert Price. And he did some Tang Sudo, which later became Taekwondo, and also was the first guy that traveled to Thailand, and was the first black is like a combination of Muay Thai and Kempo. And so he brought that back to California, and I trained with him for 3-4 years as a kid, and at the same time was boxing at the YMCA. So early on, I was kind of just immersed in it, and just loved it. Just loved the people, loved looking up to those guys and doing what they were doing.
And how did you continue that? What belts do you hold in what art forms?
Yeah, I really don't get too crazy about belts. I just, like I said, just love martial arts. I do have a 5th done in Olympic style Taekwondo. Like I said, I love boxing. Boxed as a kid at the YMCA and did some more boxing in the Air Force. We'd have these big smokers where, they'd pick several guys from different units, and we'd put on a big show with pretty much the whole base right there in the base gym, and a lot of pride goes into those, and but it ends up just being a great show. I did lots of different martial arts, and let's see what else. Like I said, with Bob Price, I think he got up to red belt. Just anywhere I went, I didn't really care about the belt. I just jumped into a martial arts program, did some ninjutsu, trained with folks overseas in Kadena Air Force Base that did a lot of grappling, and just wanted to pick it up and make that circle complete. Still a student of the game, and just love doing martial arts.
And then it sounds like you did serve in the Air Force?
Yes, did 22 years. It just happened that I ended up at Cannon Air Force Base, my last duty station, and I had a job in the Air Force after that, and then all these cuts started coming down as normal, and I was like, I'm just going to run my gym, see how it goes, and I was able to do that, and been blessed with running Force One. I do have another one out in, we do have another Force One in Fort Walton Beach in Corvallis, Oregon, that they strictly do Olympic style Taekwondo, and they do well out there as well.
So is it you're an extension of those gyms, or are those an extension of your gym?
They trained with me for more than 5 years, and they're now at their third dan, third degree black belt, 4th degree black belt, and they asked if they can open up a gym, and they're more than qualified, so we set them up. I set them up with certificates, and they're doing their own thing.
When did
so yes, they're an extension of Force One here.
So when in your journey did you decide that you wanted to pass on your knowledge and that you were going to open up your own gym, dojo?
I was at Kadena Air Force Base, and Grandmaster Joe Picho was out there teaching Olympic style Taekwondo, and he passed it on to another guy, Dave Perot, and we were all there at the same time. We had a good group, just kind of like we have a good group right now here at Force One, and we all train together, and eventually everybody has to leave Kadena Air Force Base out there in Okinawa, Japan. So I ended up taking over and keeping folks out of trouble out there in the military, and with our programs. And I ended up staying in Japan for 11 years. We had taught every day except for Mondays. It was incredible. It was a great experience out there in Okinawa, Japan. There's tournaments all the time, so we got to do and meet different people out there in Okinawa and just compete. That's what drove us all the time is just to compete with others and take it in. Once you compete, you learn what went right and what went wrong, and just put that in your toolbox for next time. So.
And then also, you've mentioned it, you said it a couple times, Olympic level Taekwondo. Is there a difference, or is it too much to get into to explain what regular Taekwondo and Olympic level would be?
Olympic style Taekwondo is more the sparring aspect. It's just it is considered the style, and Olympic style you can take you all the way up to the national level and international level. So there's a process, and you have to go ahead and go through everybody just like you do here in MMA.
Now back on Force of One, you've already said that you have the 2 affiliate gyms extensions that have opened because those students trained under you for 5 years. How long has Force of One been around for, your gym?
Like I said, I started when I was a real small kid, and I took over in 1996 out there in Okinawa, Japan. I was running the school and going to other classes and just pulling it all together, learning different techniques. And then I got here in 2000 and 2006. And that's when the actual name Force of One came about.
And who's responsible for the creativity, giving the name, coming up with Force of One?
As out there in Okinawa, I was with a bunch of Army guys and Marine Corps folks, and I was the only Air Force guy, believe it or not, that was in this small, tight group that we just share techniques. And back in the day, there was a commercial out there, to recruit Army folks, and it was they would say an army of one, and I was the only Air Force guy out there, so I said Force of One, and kind of stuck out. It kind of stuck, so I kind of liked it, and it grew from there. There's also that Chuck Norris movie when I saw it when I was like, I don't know how it was a Force of One. I don't know how old you are, but it goes way back. So
Awesome. And now, when did you start actively coaching fighters? Was that right away because there was always putting the techniques to competition to see how they worked?
Well, like I said, I started coaching in my own art, and then just liked putting everything all together. And back in 2010, 2009, Harvey Park walked through the door, and he's like, "Do you guys teach MMA?" And I'm like, "You know what? You're like the third or fourth person that said that. Let me give you a call back. Let me get 5 guys together, and we'll start it." And it didn't take long for MMA was growing rapidly. I'd already met a few MMA folks in like Mark Coleman, the Iceman, Chuck Liddell out there in Okinawa. I mean, it was out there in Japan really big already, and we were going to shows. And so Harvey Park walked through the door, and we started our MMA class shortly after.
And because you had already been, you said you were already going to the shows, had you already been a fan and thought, okay, maybe this is something to kick around? Once you saw that people were interested, was that some of the initial thoughts?
Yes, sir. I always want to see what's effective, what actually works, and some things that don't work for one person will work for another. So we like to just be effective in martial arts. So the MMA is just a proving ground for us, and everybody at that time was bringing their style to the table and seeing what works. And of course, the BJJ was real big, and of course, folks that could then do the takedown defense could impose their striking, and so it was just fascinating to go out there and actually see what worked.
And now we're to the point where it's been some years. How has your style of coaching and that changed as we've seen MMA evolve and change? Because it went from guys were really controlling with one dimension to we're really into an era of you have to be a mixed martial artist to be successful.
And that's very true. For a while, one style was just dominating, and people started figuring how to get around it to impose their style and their strong points. And I think we came in right at a great time because we like to test everything, and we just tested everything in the gym. And my style of coaching is if you have something that works, we're going to use it just like we do in the military. Military has really, been a part of my life since I was a kid. So we like to just use things that are effective and then kind of reflect on what happened in competition, and then go ahead and better ourselves for the next competition.
Being formerly with the Air Force, does it mix in with some of these guys, Chris Cortez and some of the other guys who are on the base come in and it's already, you've walked that same kind of path, you've been in that job? Does that help make that coach-teacher relationship easier in that town you're at?
It does. Once they know you're a retired Air Force Master Sergeant, they come in and they're just, okay, there's already a connection there, and we already talk about where we've been stationed, where's home, and those type of things that are already established in an Air Force career.
Having moved around so much, do you feel you kind of cemented now some roots there in Clovis?
Oh yes, Clovis is a real small town. Everybody knows everybody, and definitely have roots here in Clovis. Now I've been here since 2006, retired in 2010, and have just kept going. I mean, and with the folks on the base that always come out and build our team, like it's just been a great thing.
Now, some people that aren't too much in the know, they're starting to catch on. There's the secret about this really great team force of one that's coming up in Clovis. What's it like for you guys hearing these whispers at the events and seeing people start to take notice?
It feels like all our hard work has paid off a little bit, and those compliments really push us and try to keep us going and get better for the next show. For a while, we were on the road for 5 years. We never had a show in Clovis. So looking back, we'd go to these shows out in Colorado, Albuquerque, of course, Kansas, Oklahoma, and they're long drives. So on the way back, you have a captive audience with your fighter, and you'll talk about the show all the way back home. So growing up on the road doing MMA shows, kind of help us debrief for hours what just happened, and I think that's brought a lot to our team. And hearing someone compliment our little school, our small school out here, it's a great thing. It's nice.
And tell us about the coaches who assist you, who the team you've put together on that side of everything. Who's your right-hand mans right now?
Of course, I'm not the guy that can teach all this stuff. Everybody has their own great piece of the pie, and right now we have a guy that teaches us Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His name is Seth Eifert. He's a student of Rafael Freitas Barata. So he's brought our gym up to the next level. And we have Taylor McIntosh that teaches us as well some ground. We had Gilbert Quinn out here for a while, Sean Finnegan, Dane Phillips. They all taught us the ground piece. And we have Harvey Park. He goes to the boxing gym and pulls those little details from the boxing gym, and then we work on them religiously until he's firing off straight punches. So it's just everybody going out and finding something on our training with somebody in Amarillo and Lubbock, and they bring it back to our little gym, and we see if it works, develop it, and then try it out in our next competition.
We've talked about the coaching staff. Now we got to talk about the team. Harvey Park needs to be in a big fight. Waiting to see Jamie Calloway make his pro debut. On the amateur side, Chris Cortez has been on a tear race recently. Roy Cecitos undefeated, and Omar Acosta, just tell him when, where, and what kind of sport it is, and as long as you're fighting, he'll do it seems like.
Exactly, yes. Our team, those guys are in the gym. Nico Nathan, he's growing every day as far as his skills, and those guys are just a tight-knit group in our gym every day, and we like being that small-town team that's underestimated and going into these shows and doing well. I mean, I love those guys. They're like my brothers, sons. I can't. We're just a really tight team, and MMA just brings us together. We don't hang out per such when we get out of the gym, but when we're in the gym, we are just a tight group. It's just incredible with those guys.
Now tell us about some of the guys that I missed. I named some of the more active guys. You named Nico. We've seen him out there at King of the Cage and several other shows a ton of times. Tell us about some of the other fighters that are coming up.
We have Matt Adcock. I think you saw him. He's just a great wrestler out there, and he loves to test out his stand-up game. But his wrestling is just amazing. And then we have another guy that I can't wait to get into the cage. His name is Kevin Moore. He's from the base. Another great wrestler that at 145, I think he's going to do real well here coming up in the next year. Just all those guys love to come to the gym, and it's a a little competition between brothers in our gym, and we just love it. All those guys are just doing amazing things, and I think you nailed most of the names out there, and we just push ourselves. I mean, these guys go for a run through the town, and then we train. I mean, they'll either run together or run by themselves, but they're just dedicated, and they know that they're out there, representing our gym.
What was it like adding Ruby Santos to the team, the lone female there in that group?
Right, Ruby's great. I mean, we had that her fight out here in Clovis, and she just, her personality and her work ethic and just all around go get 'em type of girl is amazing to be around. She does well against these guys. I mean, her wrestling is great. Her stand-ups is coming along, and just want to showcase her next fight. I mean, she's at that point where she knows what it takes to be dedicated to MMA, and she's in there with the guys, grinding away and working hard. So it's great to have Ruby Santos on our team.
We're coming off of Jackson's MMA Series XXIII. Wouldn't it be right if I didn't get your thoughts on how some of the guys performed? And we'll start off at the top there. Probably the best main event I've ever seen, a lot of us have ever seen inside the Jackson's MMA Series cage. And you guys were an underdog, but most of that I'd say would be coming off of, Roy Cicito hadn't fought in a year and a half, so a lot of us would take, you don't know how a fighter's going to react to cage rust from there. Pulls off the big win over Ernesto Savidrez, almost got the knockout with the spinning back fist. What was it like from your perspective, Coach, watching that main event?
We know that Roy Salcedo, he went 9 straight as an amateur, 9-0, and then he had 2 losses, and then he won his first pro fight here in Clovis, and then took some time off, like I said, a year and a half. That guy strictly fights off heart, and we always knew he had it in him. He has never been really seriously hurt. He mostly from fatigue. He's out there throwing punches, but he just fights off heart. And I like to say that he came into our gym and a really tough individual. I mean, that guy. I don't know if you've ever done an interview with him, but that guy, his mom died very young in life, and he was into 21 foster homes. He came into our gym and thought he was pretty tough, and got schooled right away. And he's like, "This is something I want to learn." And he's always been gritty and always pushed himself. He's very explosive. Getting out of those, back control or any type of thing holding him down, he's very, very explosive and throws punches from all angles. He's just really an exciting guy to watch, and yeah, it was amazing watching that main event. It was very evenly matched. I looked at Ernesto and saw that he had fought guys that had 1 or 2 fights, and Roy had fought had a pretty good run in the Amis, and was starting off his pro career, and then had that year and a half layoff. So this was a great matchup for Jackson Series, and it proved out there in that show that just the will to win out there. But both those guys Um, it was an amazing show. I think I heard a couple of folks say that was the best main event they've seen in Jackson. It's not just because of a one-sided thing, but it was back and forth with Ernesto's grappling and Roy Saucedo's explosiveness and able to land some of those big shots like that spinning back fist. We worked it for a while. He's always had it. We just kind of really trained it this time, and it landed a couple times. A couple times I did tell him, "Hey, if you miss and he's coming in, you're going to get taken down." And sure enough, that it did happen. But it is a weapon that comes out of nowhere, and if you don't get hit with it, if you get hit with it, it's going to do some damage. If you miss, you might be in a bad position afterwards. But it does work for him.
The first one that nearly missed, I think, didn't drop Savidre. My thought was, if that lands again, he's going to go out. And sure enough, dropped to all fours the minute the second one. Credit to him for surviving that. He did not see it coming, though, a couple times. And incredibly impressed with that heart, because having his back taken, Roy's, and still turning into the guard of Savidre's, that it looked like there were some times where he was too tired to do it and then exploded and do it. It was amazing. Also, again, punching from behind, and it looked to be quite effective, bothering Ernesto. Those in-between moments when you don't expect things to happen, I thought Roy did a great job of capitalizing and kind of making the fight dirtier and fighting in those moments than having a clean, pretty fight.
Totally agree. Roy, it looked like a couple times that it was deep, but from our angle, he had his chin in there, and he was just waiting for that right moment to turn into the guard and start his ground and pound. But some great back and forth with those guys. Even at the end of the second round, Roy ended up somehow taking his back after Ernesto had him for a long time, defending that choke. Then all of a sudden, Roy had his back, and it was like 10 seconds left, and he's squeezing him and as hard as he could, and you could just see that Ernesto was going to wait for that. You're going to survive it for that bell. It was another 10 more seconds, it might have been a different story. It's just the will of those two guys. It might be a great rematch in the future.
Had that fight not been so amazing, fight of the night would have been Chris Cortez versus Ambrose Vigil. Another win for your guys' team, and the win streak continues for Chris Cortez right now on a tear. Tell us about him and his growth that you've seen.
Chris Cortez, he came into the gym, I think he was like 165, already super strong. He loves to lift weights and wrestle, and then he said he's going to drop all the way down to 35 and then to 25. He found a home at 25, and that fight was amazing as well. Chris landed some shots. The suplex looked like he just planted him straight over his back. It was a great fight as well. Chris is always he is very mature. I think he's 23, 24. And he analyzes everything. Again, he's in the Air Force, and he's just trying to make that next step. He wants to make MMA his lifestyle and a career. So he's got another year in the Air Force, and he's on to bigger and better things in MMA. That was another amazing fight.
That was an amazing fight. Got to touch on it real quick. How frustrating are rules and referees not knowing them sometimes?
Right, I think they're in there to keep us safe. And but when there's a call like, when, let's see, Chris Cortez had his opponent down, and I think he was in guard or mount or side control or something, but they stood him up to check his opponent's nose, and then we were trying to ask for a position back, and it didn't happen, so they ended up starting from standing again. But you just got to expect those things to happen and grow from them, and the rest out there just doing their job, doing the best they can. They're totally fair all the time. So
a good
night.
But
yeah, like I said, we have had moments where someone's falling and they grab the cage, and we don't get that position. So they'll get a point taken away, but we want the position. So we want it's kind of frustrating when a ref doesn't know all those situations, but hopefully they have some kind of debriefing on their side that they can talk about. Like another referee will come up, hey man, why'd you stand those guys up, or why didn't you give them that position back after you gave them that foul?
Another good night for you guys as a team. How did you sum it up? Your assessment.
I sum it up just by we're out here in Clovis. We don't have much to do out here per se, and we always in the gym working hard, and those long drives from past competitions help us build what we are today, and we're just always in the gym working hard. If someone says, "Hey, coach, are you gonna open the gym at this time?" I say, "Sure." And we just get it done. We just sum it up with hard work pays off. That's the bottom line.
Has there been any part of now trying to transition Harvey Park to the next level, that the tear he's been on, but it's from a small town, there's not much video, has that almost made it harder that people are scared of the unknown threat?
I think what they have seen of Harvey, he's done it in devastating fashion, and on the ground, we came into this sport knowing that you can't be one-dimensional, and we train. Of course, everybody trains on the ground, and everybody trains on stand-up. But when you see Harvey, you always know that there's bigger and better things, bigger and better shows on the horizon for him. And it is really tough right now to find an opponent, but we just attribute that to his drive and love for the sport. It is unknown. I mean, people do go out there, and we put all our stuff out there on the internet that we can get a hold of, and they still have issues, working with or trying to defeat him. So I just attest that to Harvey just being one of those guys ready for bigger and better things.
And what would you say is at the core of Force of One? The core principle of what you want to teach and to give back in that community of Clovis?
Well, we've taken in. I used to be this guy that only be a little bit selective on who I wanted in my gym, and now I've grown up quite a bit, and we've taken in anybody that wants to train, and hopefully out here in Clovis, we try to pull people into something that's positive and get their workout on, be athletic, grow in the sport, get better at something, and walk away from our gym knowing they have some confidence and some goals and that they're trying to work towards. So we just anybody that comes into our gym, we try and find out what they're looking for, and guide them on the right path to their goals.
Not so much a secret anymore. Eric Suan, Force of One Martial Arts. I gotta thank you so much for joining me this week.
Thank you, Micah. We love seeing you out there at the shows. We'll see you at the next one.
Definitely. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, sir.
One more time, it was great to have Eric Suan on here, try to give a little more exposure about Force of One Martial Arts in Clovis, doing things to put themselves on the map. Again, your LFA 24 and Glory 46 quick results are up at cagedminds.com, along with your results and recap for Jackson's MMA Series 23. Caged Minds Combat Sports News on Facebook all week long. Be looking on the Facebook page as Franklin Romero has photos going up from the event throughout the week. Then this upcoming weekend, LFA 25, Bellator 185, UFC Fight Night on UFC Fight Pass from Poland. That's UFC Fight Night 118. I'm going to be on Twitter all weekend long talking about all three events. And again, a shout out to Edwin Rees and Mac 10. That's MMA CK10. Thank you guys for all the support, and thank you everybody for tuning in.